We can go back now and take a look at what's happening in Tel Aviv at Hostages Square. We can see people erupting with joy as they watch that live stream of the release of these hostages. Let's take a listen to what's happening there. We've actually got France 24's correspondent Noga Tarnopolsky, who is at Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. Let's cross to her to see what's going on. Noga, what's the latest where you are?
Well, the latest, just really this minute, we're hearing that Hamas confirms it has transmitted to the Red Cross the last 13 hostages. So this is an accelerated schedule from what we were expecting, and a huge eruption came up here in the Hostages Square, as you can imagine. Israelis right now are getting the first images of the freed hostages who have already crossed over into Israel. 1 or 2 already images of them embracing family members. And the fact that they seem to be in decent health, standing on their own 2 feet, has brought a lot of relief.
Mixed emotions, of course, Noga. I mean, on the screen, we're seeing people erupt with joy. We have to remember that not all of the hostages are coming back alive. Hamas is due to hand over bodies of those dead at a later time. Have you spoken to anyone who's voiced kind of, feelings of grief and mourning in this kind of bittersweet feeling?
Yes, I think that reflects basically everyone here, even, in the moments in which these joyful yells erupt, there's a very clear anxiety here, not just sadness over the fate of the hostages who didn't survive. And there was, by the way, earlier today, huge disappointment when Hamas released the list of names of the hostages to be freed, because 2 of these hostages, Tamir Nimrodi and Bipin Joshi, were considered to have had an unknown fate. The Israeli authorities have not been able to determine if they were alive or dead, and there was a lot of hope they might be released among those living, but their names did not appear and they're not being released. So it's a very clear presence. It's like a shadow over this entire proceeding. And I'd say more than that, a shadow over Israeli society. I expect that after the eruption of joy today, we're going to see some much more complex days ahead, especially because Hamas has said that it will be complicated for them to locate all the bodies. And so some families who are already bereft fear being left behind in the sense of never even being able to bury their loved ones. So it's very, very present during this event.
In the meantime, we are seeing images of people celebrating, and we've also seen already those first images, as you mentioned, of the hostages who were released, some of them video calling relatives. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is a very strange, a new thing that has happened. Hamas, the same terror group that kidnapped them and has held them, decided to call the relatives of these men who it was releasing while they were en route to the Red Cross. So they called Hamas, the Hamas militants holding them, called their family members while they were still being held hostage. And those were the very first images we saw. It was a very confusing moment for many of the family members who did not know what these numbers were that were calling them at such a, fraught juncture. Some didn't answer, some did, but those are the first images we saw. Then, subsequently, when they were already in Israeli army vehicles, we saw them make what are more traditional phone calls from Israeli hands. I think now we're seeing the release of the last 13 hostages one by one. You can hear around me the eruptions. Every time another name is read out for so many Israelis, these hostages have become known quantities. They have struggled for them for so long, and there are at least 100,000 people around me here at this square right now. And the reaction is visceral. It's really something when you think about what these families succeeded in doing with their struggle.
We can see the images on our screens, Noga. We've got people cheering, pouring drinks, crying. Really strong images. I can only imagine what it's like to be there in person. Thank you very much for keeping us up to date. We will come back to you as the day goes on. Thank you very much for that.